Welcome to the Fantasy Flex podcast presented by PrizePicks. I am your host, Chris Raybon, and today is our props episode for week 2. I'm here with my guy, Sean Koerner. Sean, you went 5 for 5 on your props last week. Just blew me out of the water. So do you want to take a victory lap?
Yes, I do. And I went 5-0 last week, and we've talked about it at length this week, how week 1, it's one of the trickier weeks to project because we're kind of just going off beat reports, intuition, things like that. But now we have a week's worth of data, which admittedly isn't a big sample size, but at least it's something. So I feel even better about my projections and picks this week, if you could believe it.
So you're going to go like 6 for 5.
I don't know if it's possible. Yeah, maybe I won't flex these. I'm just going to go straight for the power play.
Oh, you got to, man. Live a little. All right. So let's get right into the show. And we're going to do a quarterback prop, 2 running back props, and 2 receiver tight end props. So, Sean, start us off with your first prop, the quarterback prop.
I am going with Jameis Winston over 230 passing yards. It's kind of weird that this is kind of a week 1 overreaction line when he threw for 5 freaking touchdowns. But he only threw for 140 yards because the Packers really just did nothing on offense. So the Saints didn't really have to throw much. Jameis Winston only had 20 passing attempts last week. So this seems weird to say, but this should be a more competitive game this week against the Panthers. The Saints are -3.5. So I think we're going to see Jameis Winston get to throw it around a little bit more. And he does look like a completely different quarterback in this scheme. He's going to be more efficient. So I think he has a higher floor than we're used to seeing in the Bruce Arians offenses of the world. So I love the over here. I'm projecting this closer to 250 actually. And I would take this up to 235.5.
Yeah. So explain to the people real quick why. Okay, you're projecting it at 250, but you would take it to 235.5, because I think some people they struggle to kind of understand, the mean versus the median, and sometimes they hear us say, "Okay, I got this projected here, but I'll only take it to here." So explain that for the people out there.
Yeah, well, when it comes to quarterback props, passing yards, if you're showing about 20 yards of discrepancy between your projection and the prop, that's probably worth the same amount as, say, 5 rushing yards or 5 receiving yards. So we have a higher range of outcomes when it comes to passing yards. But when it comes to my projected median, so I've done a lot of testing when it comes to projecting players. So typically my projections that you see on FantasyLabs or just fantasy football, those are my mean projections. So that's sort of the average if they were to play this game 1,000 times, let's say, but the median is typically lower, and we don't have enough time to kind of go on why that is, but I'm usually adjusting for that, and I'm trying to find how much I would take it up to where I think I'll still have about a 58% chance of hitting. So that's the long story short why I'm kind of choosing these numbers that I'm saying I will pick it up to or down to.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think I just wanted to kind of get your thoughts on that, because I know people probably wondering, like, why would you take it like 15 yards below? But I agree. I think, Winston's in a good spot. I know the Saints are having some issues. So, with the coaching staff and COVID, and how crazy is it that Michael Thomas lands on the COVID list? I mean, this is shaping up as such a disaster season for Michael Thomas, but such a great season for the Saints because they're just so well coached. So it's very interesting. But yeah, I think that was a fluky game script in week 1. And I would expect Jameis to be to be a lot closer to the league average most weeks, or at least closer to that, 200, what was it, 247, I think that Breeze averaged last year.
Somewhere around there, I think his baseline.
Right. All right. For my first prop, the quarterback prop I'm going with is one we talked about, I think, earlier in the week, but Mac Jones under 250.5 passing yards. I have this closer to 230. And the reason being, I know he threw for 279 last week, but you have to look at the game scripts with these things. And New England spent only 2 minutes and 30 seconds of that entire game against Miami with the lead. So Mac Jones, 38 of his 39 pass attempts came while trailing. It was just one of those situations where the Patriots never really got a handle on the game due to some fumbling issues. They couldn't quite get out in front. And I don't think that's necessarily going to be an issue against the New York Jets. We've seen this line move from about 3.5 to 6 in favor of the Patriots. The Jets, of course, had some key players go down, namely Mekhi Becton, their left tackle. So I think the Patriots are going to play from a leading game script in this spot, and you're going to see a lot fewer pass attempts, especially going on a road divisional game, usually tight, low scoring type of affairs. Their divisional unders in week 2, especially, usually hit at almost 60%. So I think this is going to be a run heavy game script for New England. And I'm projecting Mac Jones closer to 230 yards than the 250. So I'd take it to about 235 as well.
Yeah, I'm with you with Mac Jones being, in the low 230s. And I think when we talked about this prop on Tuesday, it was about 7 yards higher.
Yeah, an attempt higher. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's starting to go down, but not enough. Got to get closer to 240, I think. So there's still some value here.
Yep. All right. Let's go to running backs. Who is your first running back prop for week number 2?
My first running back prop is Melvin Gordon over 45.5 rushing yards against the lowly Jaguars. And I realize everyone, including me, wants to see rookie Javonte Williams take over this backfield. But as you mentioned right before the season started, not so fast. This is still Melvin Gordon's backfield. And he actually looked really good in week 1. He was actually the fastest ball carrier, according to Next Gen Stats, in week 1.
Was it that long run?
Yeah. So the 70-yard touchdown run, he reached 21.5 miles per hour. So he still got it.
Yeah. I wouldn't have guessed he would have been the fastest, but I would have guessed he would have been in the conversation because after seeing that run, it was like he got past the first wave and then I forget somebody had an angle on him. I don't know if it was Bradbury. I forget who the Giants defender was, but I just remember going, wow, like he straight outran the dude. And like, you don't think of Melvin Gordon as that type of runner, especially at this stage in his career. He's 28 years old now. But yeah, he was getting
might be a little bit younger. He seems like 28, huh? But his
body is like 38.
Yeah, exactly. But this is the time of year they can lean on him, especially against the Jaguars. I think this is the time to kind of lean on him. And I wouldn't be surprised.
By the way, he is 28.
Oh, he is 28. Okay.
Sorry.
Good call. But I think I wouldn't be surprised if Javonte Williams has a much bigger role as the season goes on. But right now, this is Melvin Gordon's backfield. So this is the type of matchup. I think they're going to lean on him. So I'm projecting this closer to 57.5, which is a pretty big delta when it comes to rushing yards. So I would take this up to 49.5. But I just love the upside in this because of the game script should be run heavy. They just lost Jerry Jeudy, unfortunately. So just all signs point to Gordon going over here.
Yeah. And I mean, regarding Javonte Williams, we just got to be happy he's active. Like after the shenanigans that went on in week 1, I mean, very disappointing sermon. You said Michael Carter probably is eventually going to get that job. So, at least he's active, but, disappointing start, I think, to the season for just the usage for some of these rookies, rookie running backs. And speaking of disappointing usage, my first running back prop is going to be related to that for Zach Moss, because he was another healthy scratch. So Devin Singletary, we'll see if Moss is a scratch this week, but either way, I think Singletary has kind of earned that lead back role. So I'm going over 47.5 rushing yards for Singletary, 73% of the backfield carries in week 1. But they only had 15 backfield carries. Now, Miami allowed double that to New England, 29 carries, 119 yards. I don't expect Buffalo to go crazy running the ball, but remember, they played Pittsburgh. It's really tough to run against Pittsburgh. It's not quite Tampa Bay tough, but it's been pretty tough over the last few years to run on that Pittsburgh front. So I think, it was encouraging that Singletary was still able to play well in that tough matchup. I think he got, 72 yards. So I like anytime you have, because percentage of carries and things like that, that's since like a coach is deciding it, it's kind of human decided. It's prone to like variance and it's a little easier to project. So I always look for these situations where guys are getting a high percentage of snaps, high percentage of carries. And I love this prop, Devin Singletary over 47.5 against a Miami defense that can definitely be run on.
Yeah, when we were trying to see, like who we're gonna pick for this pod, I left the Singletary prop for you because I know you were
Thanks.
tooting his horn early in the week, but I love this over as well. And I'm projecting Zach Moss to be active, and I still have Singletary for like more than 10 yards over this. I think one of the things with Singletary, he's never going to see a stack box, or very rarely.
Mm-hmm.
And last week, according to Next Gen Stats, he saw 0 stack boxes. So he's going to have plenty of room to run whenever they want to run. And the only reason they took him out of the game briefly last week was because he was dealing with like a shoulder injury or something. So they intended him to be a true workhorse. That's kind of why I think they had Zach Moss inactive. So I wouldn't be surprised if Zach Moss is inactive again and Singletary just like crushes this prop. So I'm with you on the over as well.
Yeah, we've seen that in the past. That year with Frank Gore, the first half of the year, they kind of broke Singletary in, but that second half of the year, Gore would get like 1-2 touches and Singletary get like 17, 18. And then we saw that again in the playoffs. Singletary was just getting a huge workload. So yeah, hopefully it continues, but there's a little, like you said, a little bit of wiggle room because he should be relatively efficient with the light boxes. All right, where are you going for running back prop number 2?
Well, I have to take Derrick Henry over 84.5 rushing yards. I feel like this is a treat. This is a week 1 overreaction kind of line. I expect the whole entire Tennessee offense to bounce back after that dreadful week 1 performance. And, I guess rain is in the forecast in Seattle this Sunday, if you can believe it. So that could be another potential reason why they might give Derrick Henry a bigger workload. But either way,
the roof. Can they just close the roof?
Oh, can they?
I think they have a roof.
That's news to me. I didn't know they had a roof there now.
Maybe I'm wrong. I thought they had a roof.
You're wrong. I think you're wrong.
I
remember rain games last season with no fans, but
yeah, you might be right. I mean, it's Seattle, so it's hard to.
Yeah. By the way, that is not factoring at all in my pick, but
yeah, it has a retractable roof.
Oh, well, fuck. All right. Well,
oh my God, I know I'm not going nuts here. Like, wait.
Yeah. Well, anyways, forget I said that. The real reason I like this is because Derrick Henry is really good at football. He went over this number 11 of 16 games last year. That's a 68% clip. I have no reason why, he'd be in such a steep decline this year. We can't expect that going forward here. So I'm projecting this closer to 95.5. Your typical Derrick Henry massive rushing yard projection. So I would take this up to about 88.5.
Yeah, I think I haven't even. What do I have him at? Yeah, I still have him at a 102. So like, and that's the mean. Yeah, I mean that's.
Yeah,
I think you have him about 6 yards higher than you have him, but or 101.5. I have, but yeah, I agree. I think, and listen, the Seattle run defense is no joke, but more so it's just the volume with Derrick Henry, the yards after contact. You don't expect them. He still got 17 carries last week in a pretty bad game script. So, it's not like Jonathan Taylor last week. I was worried because you have like Nyheim Hines, and they said they want to get him more involved. So it's, with Derrick Henry, if he comes out at all, it's going to be in the pass game, So the rushing prop, I would be less worried about with Henry than with a guy like Taylor, who we went under with last week. So yeah, I'm with you there. For my second running back prop, going Darrell Henderson over 57.5 rushing yards. I have this closer to 62, so about a tenth of an edge here in terms of the median. He had 16 of 17 backfield carries, or 94%. Sony Michel jogged in for 1 carry with like 5 minutes left in the game, and he didn't even get the series. Like usually the backup running back, he gets like a drive, a series, usually it's, gets like the first of the second quarter, maybe the first of the fourth quarter, even in like when you have a workhorse. But no, Sony Michel literally got that 1 carry, jogged back out, barely played many snaps. Henderson was the guy, and Indianapolis in a low volume play game for Seattle. I think Seattle ran only 53 plays. Seattle's back still tallied 104 yards on the ground, so nearly double this prop. So yeah, I like Henderson over 57.5 and I'd take it to 60.
Yeah, I'm with you here, and we talked about it on Tuesday's pod, but Sony Michel just came in briefly in garbage time, and then they put Henderson back in there. But one of the things, one of my pet peeves is people that just say, "Oh, preseason doesn't matter, this and that." Like, of course, it doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things, but you can gain a lot of information based on preseason. And the Rams bubble wrap Darrell Henderson. He didn't play a single snap. So we knew that they were going to treat him like the workhorse back heading into the season. And lo and behold, we saw that week 1. So I don't think the market has quite realized that yet. But, a game like this, I think we could see him approach 20 carries. So, yeah, I'm with you on the over here.
My favorite prop of week 1 actually was not, it had something to do with Henderson, but books had Sony Michel at over under 5.5 receiving yards. And I banged that under.
That's
and so I'm hoping they drop it to 4.5, and I'll still go under this week.
For Sony Michel?
Yeah.
Yeah, anything above a half is probably a fair game.
Yeah, he's more likely than not to catch a pass.
Right. For now. I mean, towards the end of the season, who knows? Because he was a decent pass catching back at Georgia. The Patriots isn't using that way, but it's clear that he's just a sort of an emergency change of pace back right now. So we probably won't see much of him for the first few games anyways.
And when the Patriots use you a certain way, I mean, I still take notice of it, because it's the Patriots saw him every day in practice, and they decided that they were going to give him 15 carries and no catches every week. So, right. I mean, that matters for something, because then we kind of, now the Rams aren't giving him work at all, but he only ran one route, I believe it was. So, yeah, but we're off topic. Let's go to your first receiving prop.
I am going Henry Ruggs under 43.5 receiving yards. By now we sort of know the type of player Ruggs is. He's a low volume home run.
Not a good one.
What?
Not a good one.
Not a good one. I wouldn't say that. No.
I'm out on Henry Ruggs. When every receiver on the Raiders except Willie Snead is better than you, I'm out.
Well, I think Derek Carr only has eyes for Darren Waller, but that's for another time. But in 14 games, he has yet to see more than 5 targets. This is Ruggs. And, he's only cleared this number 5 of 14 games. When he does go over this number, he goes over by a mile. So, he's rarely close to his prop. So I have his median closer to 34.5. He has a very low floor every week. And I would take this down to about 39.5.
Yeah. I mean, I expected Ruggs to have a breakout this year, but I mean, the more I watch him and the more I hear announcers talk about him, because they get the access to the coaches, it's just he's putting a lot of pressure on himself. Oh, he had to get more physical. But it's this dude just doesn't get open. All this speed, and he just doesn't get open. He's never open. I don't think it's Derek Carr not having eyes for him. I think Derek Carr throws to the open guy. Derek Carr doesn't like to hold the ball. Darren Waller gets open. Brian Edwards got open. At least when Brian Edwards is covered, he's bigger guy.
Yeah, he's
Carr will throw to him. He's like his Crabtree, like Crabtree.
You'll agree that Ruggs will have a few monster games this year, correct?
Is Greg Williams still employed by NFL defense? No, so probably not.
Okay.
Wasn't that Ruggs' only big game? And the one against the Chiefs, I think, right?
Well, I'm betting the under here, so I'm not trying to vouch for him. But either way, it probably won't happen against the Steelers, is what my angle is.
This is going John Ross fast.
Oh yeah, I could. Yeah.
This is going that direction.
Absolutely.
Because that's the thing. Ruggs hasn't even. I mean, I know he missed a few games last year, but he starts missing games with injuries. I mean, it feels like it can only go downhill. Maybe it's an overreaction, but I can't give this guy any more chances.
The John Ross comparison is probably spot on, unfortunately.
Yeah, Ruggs in 2 years will be like the Giants' 6th receiver.
Yeah.
Behind CJ Board.
Exactly.
Another worrisome sign for my first receiving prop, something that I think a lot of us were high on coming in the year. That was, I mean, I don't really know what to make of it, but Robert Woods did not operate as the every down player that we've been accustomed to. He ran around only 2/3 of the dropbacks behind not only Cooper Kupp, who was out there every snap, but also Van Jefferson. So I don't know if this was kind of a 1 week deal, what was going on there, but I'm going under Robert Woods 63.5 receiving yards because, I mean, even if Robert Woods was a full-time player, this would be kind of his median, but we don't know if he is. So, 3 catches, 27 yards last week on 4 targets. Now you're playing a pretty decent Colts defense. I know Tyler Lockett got some big plays, but they were able to corral DK Metcalf for most of the game. Lockett only got 5 catches. Metcalf got 4. Like, I just don't know what to make of Woods. Maybe, we know Jared Goff was a more underneath thrower. That helped Woods. And Cooper Kupp, he makes best friends with every quarterback. So maybe he kind of won Stafford over. And then you have Van Jefferson on this year 2 breakout track. So, until we see Robert Woods become a full-time guy again, I think you have to slam this under 63.5.
Yeah, I think for now anyway, Robert Woods has a much lower floor than we're used to seeing, but I can't bring myself there. I think I need to see one more game to figure out what the hell is going on here, because the routes run rate was very bizarre. And like you said, Cooper Kupp, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if he has a 10 plus catch game here. So I'm with you on the Woods prop in terms of projection, but I just can't bet against him quite yet. I think we need to see one more game, but it's very concerning after week 1 for sure.
63.5, that would be like a iffy prop, even if he was like a 90% guy against the Colts. Like,
yeah,
the Colts
I
are a
agree.
team that's just going to give up, like, they're just going to get like bleed receiving production.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm projecting him at 58, so his median's probably closer to 53. But I just don't. He's one of those players this week I don't feel comfortable projecting at all. And he's, like I said, he's typically a high floor player.
Yeah.
So that's my only reason why I'm staying away from it. But I am absolutely in line with you in terms of like process and projecting. It's just I kind of need to see one more week of data before we can write him off quite yet. Not that you're writing him off.
Yeah, I'm just kind of taking advantage of the fact that I don't feel like his prop was adjusted enough, given the fact that his routes went down by like 25%.
Totally. And maybe they'll get him involved in the running game.
Right. Yeah. And they always do. But
yes,
yeah,
exactly.
I think I'd rather do it now while he's still in this. Cause I mean, maybe it comes out. A lot of times what happens with these guys is like, it comes out later after the year that like, oh, they were dealing with some kind of unknown injury. But like, yeah, if like best predictor of routes run in the current week is routes run in the last week. So
yep, I agree. And this is, I mean, player props are a market. You're selling high on him, and who knows, 2 weeks from now, his average prop might be like 50.5 yards, and we'll pass on that. But right now, yeah, I think if you have an angle like that, go for it.
All right, where are you going with your second?
Well, I'm saving the best for last here, and I'm going Tyler Higbee to smash over 40.5 receiving yards. Like, this is my favorite prop right now on the board. And he had a solid week 1, going 5 catches for 68 yards, no touchdowns. Okay. But, his underlying usage is just insane. He played every single snap. He ran a route 93% of the time, which we know that's elite for tight ends.
Sounds like Robert Woods used to be.
Yeah, but I mean, for
he
tight
took
ends,
the Robert Woods role.
Yeah, for tight ends, that's like Travis Kelce,
that's Logan Thomas.
Yeah, but better. And a 24% target share. So when it comes to this Rams offense, Matt Stafford's going to elevate it to levels we saw in 2018, 2019, where Tyler Higbee went off at the end of the season. So I'm expecting that kind of breakout starting now. So now's the time to buy low on Tyler Higbee wherever and whenever you can. I'm projecting this, way over, probably closer to 55 yards, and I would take it up to about 47.5.
Yeah, I feel like we have 3 Rams on the in our props, and yeah, I have it about 3 yards lower than you at 52, but I'm right in line with Higbee. Well, average projection clearing 50 yards easily. So I like that one. I mean, you can't go wrong kind of targeting tight ends who run a lot of routes, because it's going to be the most predictive thing that you can get. The targets, sometimes they'll be there, sometimes they won't. But if you're getting a guy that's on the field every snap, because remember, tight ends are going to block here and there too. So like the more snaps you're on the field, the higher the ceiling is, the higher the floor is. So
Yeah, and I
like
think
that
just
one.
with players like, well, Matthew Stafford, of course, is going to elevate the offense, but having guys like Deshaun Jackson, Van Jefferson, potentially Tutu Atwell going deep, and then you have, Woods and Cup maybe closer to the line of scrimmage, and you have Higbee just has the entire middle of the field to himself. He has room to run. Just everything I saw about week 1 screams elite tight end 1 the rest of the way. So I want to buy in on him as much as I can early on.
Yep. Yeah, and this is a big, if he goes off this week, I mean, he's probably a top 5 tight end going forward.
Yes.
Because last week, I know the Bears like to, they play that same scheme the Rams do a lot of the time, that kind of 2 deep shell. The Colts, I think, a little more balanced. So we'll see if he can kind of get openings this week and kind of pay off on all those routes. Yeah, it's going to be hard to fade him at any point this year. For my last receiver and prop, I'm going with Danny Amendola, under 29.5 receiving yards. And this one for me is just, regression, because Amendola ran a route on just 43% of the dropbacks last week. That could go down even more because remember, Anthony Miller was inactive last week, but we'll see what happens, this week, so that the slot receiver duties could be kind of split up even more. But Amendola only had a 3.8 ADOT. So his average depth of target was under 4 yards. He had 5 targets and he caught all 5 and just barely went over this prop at 34 yards last week. So he had to catch 100% of his targets just to get 5 yards over this. I don't think you're going to see that this week against Cleveland. Danny Amendola is an older guy. He's, there's not enough routes here. So I have him projected closer to 20 yards. Just because the ADOT is so low and you can't expect him to always see that high of a target share, and you could see his routes going down. So Amendola under 29.5.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I'm projecting this closer to 18 yards because
yeah.
it sounds like Anthony Miller is returning this week.
Mm-hmm.
So once you factor that in, I don't see how Amendola is gonna be able to see enough targets to go over this. And Amendola is the type of player that he can get 3 catches and still go under. So a low ADOT player like that, especially when Tyrod Taylor is just chucking it deep like he did last week. Amendola is in a tough spot. I'm with you on the under here as well.
All right, so that was our props episode for week number 2. Remember, the lines do move on PrizePicks, so do get your entries in as soon as possible. And be sure to get the best of the number. You can find Sean on Twitter at _oddsmaker. You can find me on Twitter at Chris Raybon, and you can find us at those same handles in the award-winning Action Network app. Be sure to check out our projections and rankings on Action Network and our DFS models on FantasyLabs.com. Until next time, let's get this money.